What up, y'all? This DJ Illmatic back once again, coming at you live and direct, straight from my crib, USA, daily operation, episode 9. Here once again to chop it up with you about all the goings on in the gaming world today. I'm going to start this week off like we do each and every week with electric relaxation, talking about the games I played in the past week. Now, the one I spent most of my time with this past week was Shadow of Mordor. You're checking it out here. And I have to admit, I do have a problem. I buy games at launch on a regular basis. Pretty much everything that comes out at launch, I usually end up getting. I play it for a few hours, and then something new comes out, and I move along to that game. Now, I know it makes a whole lot more sense for me to just play a game through to completion and then buy another one. I probably save a whole lot of money because by the time I get around to playing it, like Shadow of Mordor, for example, I could have caught this on sale probably 2 or 3 times since it came out. But God blessed me with a lot of gifts. Patience was not one of them. I gotta have things at launch. Don't ask me why, but I do. So I cop them, play them for a few hours, then end up moving along and having to come back to them. That being said, I eventually do make it back to most of them, and I made it back this week to Shadow of Mordor. And I have to say, I absolutely love the game. I see why it won so many Game of the Year awards. It's an amazing game. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage everyone to play it. I love the game. Now, I don't have any attachment to the Lord of the Rings series myself. I've never seen one of the Lord of the Rings movies, never read any of the books, so I don't have any attachment or knowledge of the backstory or the lore of the world. That was lost completely on me. I assume that if you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings series, it's probably you probably loved the game even more than I did. But I absolutely love the combat in the game. Now, early on, it was difficult. It was kind of one of the things that made me kind of move on to other games. Is that facing all these Uruks, I believe they're called, it's very difficult early on in the game because they will surround you, they'll swarm you, they'll keep coming. But eventually, as you build up your attributes, I eventually got an attribute that allowed me to do get a special move at a 5 hit combo, and then I was able to do 2 special moves or 2 executions for every 5 hit combo I got. Once I got those 2 attributes, combat was a whole lot more manageable. I was able to mow through large amounts of enemies. Now, I won't say very easy. I still died on occasion, but I felt a lot more powerful, and it felt a lot more fun to go up against these large groups of enemies and come out on top more often than not. So I played through the entire game. I love the story. I heard some criticism. There's apparently some criticism about the final boss battle, about it being a quick time event. I didn't buy into all that. In fact, until someone mentioned it to me, I didn't even realize that it was a quick time event. That was completely lost on me. I love the ending because the ending, for a few seconds, it had me kind of guessing, like, okay, what in the world are they going to do? I didn't really know how they were going to end the game, which, for video games is often rare because a lot of times you know what's going to happen before it happens going into the final boss battle or whatever. For a few seconds, it had me guessing, like, wow, how are they going to end this? Now, it eventually did kind of end what the way you expected, but there was a few seconds there where I wasn't really sure what they were going to do or how they were going to pull this off. Yes, the final boss battle does end in a quick time event. That being said, to me, I look at the entire last segment of the game as the boss battle, and so when you look at it from that perspective, there is a it does begin with you fighting a large number of Uruks. Then you have some sneaking involved. Then it gets into a quick time event. Like I said, but that criticism didn't resonate with me. I think people just like to complain too much. The ending at all didn't bother me. I really liked the story and how it developed and played out. Graphically, it's beautiful. Love the combat. One of the most satisfying combat systems in any game. Also, really love the different ways and you deal with the Uruks and the war chiefs and how they have this hierarchy and how people move up and down that hierarchy, or really move up or die, one or the other, depending on how well they do against you in combat and how they'll remember you. If they killed you before, they'll remember you when you see them again. So all those things made an exceptional game. I really love this game. I really want to go back and get the platinum, but I have too many games on my backlog right now to bother with it. But it's something I may eventually go back to do. Like I said, I really enjoyed this game, Shadow of Mordor. If you haven't checked it out, please do. I also spend a little time, like I do each and every week, playing NBA 2K, primarily the rec. And this is one feature I wish 2K and really other sports games, really all games, but sports games primarily would add. And 2K, to me, it seems like they could do it relatively easy, and that is for gamers to be able to connect their profiles between 2 different systems. And the reason I think 2K should be able to do it easily is 2K, they do everything online. So you upload your character that you play with in the rec, your created player that you create, and then go online and play with and against other people in the rec. This character is uploaded online, and so it'd be really nice to be able to connect both my Xbox and my PlayStation 4 profile to that one character because I have a lot of partners. I play it on the PS4 and I play with my partners over there, but I got some partners that play on the Xbox One. I would love to go. I would have bought NBA 2K twice. I would love to go on the Xbox side occasionally and play with my friends, but I do not want to buy the game and then start all over with a brand new character and have to build up his attributes and unlock all the badges and all that again. I would really prefer, in fact, the only way I would ever do it is if I could take my PS4 character over to the Xbox One. I don't really see it being that difficult, like I said, especially for 2K when they upload everything anyway. I don't know if PlayStation or Microsoft just don't want it to happen because they don't want to interact with each other at all. But missing out on money, like I said, I would buy the game on both systems if I could have that one character that went back and forth. Now, I don't know how many people could do that or would be willing to do that, but it seems to me they're missing out on a little bit of money. At the very least, they're missing out on my $60 because I would have copped another one if I could have done that. So I wish it'd be a feature that more systems or more games would add. I mean, I understand we can't have cross play in terms of playing against people on separate systems, but if nothing else, just have our characters and our stats and our profile or created characters transfer back and forth a lot easier would be nice. All right, next segment of the show is called Buck 'em Down because this is a segment of the show we buck down the foolishness and the ignorance in the gaming world today. Now, I want to talk a little bit about VR, virtual reality. Now, the Game Developers Conference was held this past week, and VR was a big topic. Everyone seems to be pushing towards the fact or the idea that VR is the future of gaming. You have Project Morpheus, which is Sony's VR headset. Microsoft has one on the way. You have Oculus Rift. Valve is developing one as well. And so VR is being pushed as the future of gaming. I'm not really feeling it though, to be honest with you. I'm not really excited about virtual reality. I have far more questions than I have answers. Now, I will, full disclosure, I've never had any hands-on time with VR, and so if I ever get the chance to have hands-on with it, I may be completely blown away by it and be willing to jump in both feet and love VR. But from my perspective right now, I'm really not excited about VR at all. It kind of reminds me of this push back in the last gen towards these motion controls with the Nintendo Wii, and then PlayStation Move, and then Microsoft Connect. Everyone was pushing towards this idea that these motion controls were the new big thing in gaming, and this was the future of gaming. And for me, it never really appealed to me. I am completely happy. In fact, I love sitting in my favorite chair with a controller in my hand playing a game. I didn't want to change that. And VR is kind of a similar thing. Now, my big question about VR is the commitment involved to playing in a virtual reality game. And when I say commitment, I'm not just talking about a financial commitment, although I expect there to be a substantial financial commitment for the hardware. When I'm talking about a commitment, I'm talking about the commitment you have to make to actually playing a VR game. Now, the way video games are set up, when I'm in my favorite chair, controller in hand, and I get immersed in a video game, time can fly by. And so I'll be playing for 5, 6 hours and not even know it. But even though I'm completely immersed in the game, the world around me still goes on, and I'm still able to interact with that world. And so my wife comes in that 4, 5, 6 hour time frame. She'll come in a couple of times and she'll speak to me for a few minutes. I may have to take a phone call or two. My dogs will let me know they need to go outside. And so all these things are going on while I'm gaming, and I'm able to take care of these things, still interact with reality, and still enjoy my game. Virtual reality takes much more of a commitment. Because when you are immersed in virtual reality, all that outside stuff disappears. And so I don't really know if I can make that commitment to basically just ignore the rest of the world and immerse myself in VR the way you have to. And I don't have any kids. If I was someone that have kids, I don't know how anyone with kids could immerse themselves, especially small kids, could ever immerse themselves in VR the way you need to. So that's my big question with VR. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want the future of gaming to evolve. For me, I want the future of gaming to evolve in a couple of other ways. First of all, I would like to see gaming evolve or improve, or the future of gaming to be focusing on the AI. I would really like to see improvements in AI. Now, AI has come a long way from sports games to third person to shooters. AI has come a long way. I would like to see a lot more developers spend a lot more time developing AI. Now, the Shadow of Mordor, I really love that AI in Shadow of Mordor, how characters would remember when they killed you, they would talk jump to you next time they saw you, or if you chased them off or it scarred them from a previous battle, they would remember all these things. But I really think AI is something that can continue to be improved. So I would really like to see a focus on improving AI going forward. But the one thing I want to see developers focus on for the future of gaming, and where I would really like to see the future of gaming evolve and improve at, and that's in storytelling. Storytelling has always lagged behind in the video evolution of video games. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some examples of some great storylines in video games. Mass Effect comes to mind. The Last of Us comes to mind. But for the most part, most video games fall into this category. They have a story that is just good enough to see you through the game, but it's not something really that is memorable at all. It doesn't stay with you. And so years later, and some in a lot of examples, even a month or so later, you don't really remember the story. It doesn't stay with you. As opposed to movies, my favorite movies, I can tell you the plot line from beginning to end. A lot of my favorite games I can't really do that with in terms of the storyline. So I would really like to see developers focus on improving and bring us much better, much more memorable stories. And there's so much potential in telling an amazing story in video games, much greater than in movies and books. And the reason being is video games have a way to draw you in, unlike movies and books. For me, the best example I can give is when you watch a movie, you read a book, basically you are in the passenger seat. You're just along for the ride. And wherever that director, wherever that author is taking you, you're just along for the ride. Whereas a video game, with your hand on the controller, you are now in the driver's seat. And so you are no longer just passively watching the action pass before your eyes. You are now controlling the action. You are in the driver's seat. And so the impact these stories can have, a great video game story can have on you, is much, much greater than it is in a movie or a book. And I'll use The Last of Us for an example. Now, I've said before, I absolutely love The Last of Us, one of the most amazing storylines in all of gaming history. And the reason it was able to tell such an amazing story is because it drew you in because you were controlling the characters. Now, some people like to criticize the Last of Us story and say, well, they just borrowed this idea from that, or they borrowed a lot of ideas from this book or this movie. And I won't disagree with you. Nas has a song called No Ideas Original, and I kind of agree with that. Pretty much anything you can look at, any story, any movie, any book, any video game, draws in from inspiration from other things. And so there's very rarely, if at all, do you ever see a completely and totally new idea. But what makes The Last of Us story so amazing is it draws you in very early. I'll take the beginnings of the game. When you control Joel's daughter and you wake up and you're trying to find your father and the explosion, and basically that first 20 to 30 minutes of the game, you're right there at the beginning of the end of the world. And the fear and uncertainty of all of that, you really feel that when you play the game. You really draws you in to where you don't know what to expect, what's happening, what's going on. And then when Joel's daughter died, that to me that's one of the few moments in gaming history or really movie history or whatsoever where I really felt emotion that deep. Like it almost moved me to tears because I could just imagine losing a child like that. And that was the ability that a video game had to do that a movie would not, because it wasn't just me passively watching what was happening to Joel's daughter. By controlling Joel and even controlling the daughter earlier, I felt much more of a connection to these characters when all of this stuff happened. And so there's so much potential in developing great stories and pulling in the user or the gamer when they're interacting with these stories. So I really, for the future of games, I would really like to see much more focus placed on developing amazing storylines, because the potential to do that in gaming is unbelievable. All right, y'all, that's all the time we got for this week on Daily Operation. Once again, it's been DJ Illmatic, Daily Operation, episode 9. Check us out at 8bitchimp.com for all that gaming flavor you savor. Got a new article posting up this week, Anatomy of a Game Review. So check out my article. Check out all the articles on 8bitchimp.com. Once again, check me out on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel, DJ underscore Illmatic. Like my videos. Holla at me in the comments. Check me out on Twitch, DJ underscore Illmatic. Broadcasting almost daily. And also hit me up on Twitter, DJ Illmatic23, no underscore, no space, all together. Hit me up on one or all three of those joints, and I will holler back at you. Also, fat shout to my organized gamers family. Fat shout to everybody out there showing love, checking out my videos. Appreciate the love and support. This been DJ Illmatic, Daily Operation. We out, y'all. One.